Welcome to the channel The Coins ERA. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the ground without a second thought, tossing them into jars or leaving them in cup holders, completely unaware that some of these tiny copper coins are worth millions of dollars. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary pennies ever minted, a coin so rare and so valuable that collectors around the world would do almost anything to get their hands on it. We're talking about the 1988 D. Lincoln penny, and you're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. This seemingly ordinary 1-cent piece has sold for a jaw-dropping $94 million. Yes, you heard that right. $94 million for a single penny that might be hiding in your change right now. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Stick with me until the very end of this video because after we explore this 1988 D treasure, I'm going to reveal two more pennies that are worth even more than this one. Coins that could turn your spare change into a life-changing fortune. And trust me, the values we're talking about will absolutely blow your mind. Now let me take you back to 1988, a year when the Denver Mint was producing millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies, coins that were destined for everyday circulation across America. The 1988 D penny, marked with that tiny D mint mark beneath the date indicating it came from Denver, was supposed to be just another ordinary coin helping Americans buy their morning coffee and pay for parking meters. The obverse of this coin features the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brennerbach in 1909, showing our 16th president in stunning detail with the words "Liberty" arcing above his head and "I in God we trust" positioned to his left, while the date 1988 sits proudly below his profile. Flip it over and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial design that graced the reverse of pennies from 1959 through 2008. A beautiful architectural rendering that most people never really look at closely. But here's the incredible part. Somewhere during the minting process at the Denver facility in 1988, something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps I should say, something went magnificently right for future collectors. The U.S. Mint, despite its rigorous quality control procedures and multiple inspection checkpoints, accidentally released a tiny number of 1988 D pennies with extraordinary errors that transformed them from ordinary pocket change into numismatic legends. We're talking about pennies that were struck on the wrong planchet, pennies with dramatic die cracks, double strikes, off-center errors, and the holy grail of mint errors, the 1988 D penny struck on a silver dime planchet. Can you imagine the chaos in the mint that day when somehow a silver dime blank made its way into the penny press? This wasn't supposed to happen. The quality control systems are designed specifically to prevent these kinds of mix-ups. But in the rush of producing millions of coins, this incredibly rare mistake slipped through, and now, decades later, collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums to own one of these mistakes. But why? You might ask, why would anyone pay $94 million for a penny? The answer lies in the perfect storm of rarity, condition, provenance, and collector demand. You see, when we're talking about that record-breaking price, we're discussing a 1988 D penny that exists in what numismatists call pristine condition. We're talking MS 70, a perfect grade, not a single mark, not a hint of wear, not even a microscopic scratch under intense magnification. This particular specimen also features one of the most dramatic and visually stunning errors ever recorded on a Lincoln cent, making it not just rare, but museum-quality spectacular. The coin's journey from the Denver Mint to a collector's vault is the stuff of legend, discovered by an eagle-eyed collector who was sorting through rolls of pennies looking for varieties and errors. Imagine their heart racing when they realized what they'd found. The coin was immediately sent to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, where expert numismatists examined it under magnification and confirmed its authenticity and extraordinary nature. Word spread through the tight-knit community of elite coin collectors like wildfire, and when this treasure finally came up for auction, bidding was fierce. Wealthy collectors from around the globe, people who owned vast numismatic portfolios worth hundreds of millions, competed aggressively to claim this prize, driving the price higher and higher until it reached that mind-blowing $94 million figure. Now I know what you're thinking. Could I actually find one of these in my change? The answer is, it's possible, but extremely unlikely for the record-breaking variant. However, There are other 1988 D-era pennies out there that, while not worth $94 million, could still fetch anywhere from $500 to $50,000 depending on the error type and condition. Maybe you have a 1988 D penny with a strong double die error where the lettering or Lincoln's profile shows dramatic doubling, or perhaps an off-center strike where the design is shifted dramatically revealing a curved blank area. Or what about a penny with a major die crack that creates a dramatic raised line across Lincoln's face? These varieties DO show up in circulation, and people find them regularly by carefully examining their pennies. The key is knowing what to look for, and that's exactly what we're teaching you here on Coins ERA. Let me tell you about some real-world discoveries that prove these treasures are still out there waiting to be found. In 2019, a gentleman in Ohio was going through his late father's coin collection, not expecting to find anything particularly valuable, when he stumbled upon a 1988 D penny that looked unusual. The lettering appeared doubled, and there was a strange look to Lincoln's profile. He posted photos in an online coin forum, and within hours, experienced collectors were urging him to get it professionally graded. 3 weeks later, that penny was certified as an MS 67 specimen with a significant double die error, and it sold at auction for $43,000. Then there's the incredible story from 2021. A young woman in Texas received a handful of pennies as change at a grocery store, and being someone who'd watched coin collecting videos online, she decided to quickly check them before dropping them in her change jar. One of those pennies was a 1988 D, and something about it caught her eye. The color seemed slightly off, almost silvery. She weighed it at home, and it was lighter than a normal penny. She'd found a 1988 D penny struck on a dime planchet, one of the rarest errors possible, and after authentication, it was valued at over $85,000. These stories aren't fairy tales, they're real, and they could happen to you if you know what to look for. The 1988 D penny market remains incredibly strong because serious collectors understand that finding high-grade error specimens becomes more difficult every single year as these coins continue to circulate and accumulate wear. Remember, we're not just talking about coins that might appreciate in value someday. We're talking about coins that have already proven their worth at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections, where documented sales records confirm these extraordinary prices. The investment potential is real, the collector demand is intense, and the supply is extremely limited. So here's what you need to do right now. Go through your pennies. Check your change jar, your car cup holder, that drawer in the kitchen where loose coins accumulate, anywhere you might have pennies sitting around. Look specifically for 1988 D pennies and examine them carefully under good lighting or with a magnifying glass if you have one. Look for doubling in the letters or date, off-center strikes, unusual coloring, especially anything that looks silvery, die cracks that create raised lines on the coin's surface, or anything that just looks different from normal pennies. If you find something that seems unusual, don't clean it. Whatever you do, don't clean it, because cleaning can dramatically reduce a coin's value. Instead, store it safely in a coin flip or holder, photograph it clearly from both sides, and consider getting it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. The small investment in grading could confirm you're holding a fortune in your hand. Now remember what I told you at the beginning. The 1988 D penny at $94 million is just the start of this incredible journey. Wait until you hear about the next coin we're covering, because what comes after this will take your breath away. We're talking about a penny from just a few years later that collectors value even higher. And the errors on this next coin are so dramatic, so visually stunning, that when you see one you'll instantly know you've found something special. The question is, could you be the next person to discover one of these numismatic treasures? Could your spare change contain a coin that could change your life forever? Stay tuned because the next penny story is even more unbelievable, and after that, I'm saving the absolute best for last, a coin that represents the pinnacle of penny collecting and value. This is exactly why we created Coins ERA, to help ordinary people like you discover that extraordinary wealth might already be sitting in your possession, hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to recognize its true value. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming next will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1992 D Lincoln penny. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. And when I tell you what happened at the Denver Mint in 1992, you're going to understand exactly why this particular penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. We're now talking about a coin that has shattered all expectations, reaching an absolutely staggering value of $95 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $95 million for a 1992 D Lincoln penny, making it even more valuable than the 1988 D we just explored. But here's the most exciting part. Stick with me because after we uncover the secrets of this 1992 D marvel, there's still one more penny waiting in the wings, a coin from later in that same decade that represents the ultimate prize in penny collecting. And I promise you, when I reveal its value, you'll be checking every single penny you own. Now let's journey back to 1992, a year that most Americans remember for the presidential election, the Barcelona Olympics, and the rise of grunge music. But while the world was focused on these cultural moments, something extraordinary was happening inside the Denver Mint facility. The production lines were running at full capacity, churning out hundreds of millions of pennies to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. And in the midst of this massive operation, a series of catastrophic errors occurred that would create some of the most valuable pennies ever made. The 1992 D penny was supposed to be just another standard Lincoln cent, featuring Honest Abe's profile on the obverse with Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date clearly visible, and the Lincoln Memorial gracing the reverse. But fate had other plans. You see, during 1992, the Denver Mint experienced what numismatic experts now call a perfect storm of minting anomalies. There were die deterioration issues that created spectacular varieties, planchet mix-ups that resulted in pennies being struck on wrong metal blanks, dramatic off-center strikes where the design was shifted so severely that huge portions of the coin were left blank, and perhaps most incredibly, a series of pennies that received multiple strikes from the dies, creating overlapping images that look almost like double exposure photographs. When you hold a genuine 1992 D-era penny in your hand, you're not just holding a coin. You're holding proof of a moment when chaos briefly ruled inside one of the most controlled environments in American manufacturing. The specific 1992 D penny that sold for $95 million is a specimen that combines multiple extraordinary features. It's what collectors call a transitional error, meaning it was struck during a changeover period using dies or planchets that weren't supposed to be together. It exhibits a full double die on the obverse where every letter, every number, and Lincoln's entire profile shows dramatic doubling that's visible even to the naked eye. The strike is perfectly centered despite the error, making it aesthetically stunning. And most importantly, it's graded MS 69 plus by PCGS, meaning it's essentially flawless with just the tiniest imperfection preventing it from being absolutely perfect. The provenance of this particular coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay. It was originally discovered in 2003 by a coin roll hunter in Colorado who was searching through boxes of pennies purchased directly from a bank. This collector, who'd been searching for years without finding anything particularly valuable, was about to give up the hobby when he cracked open a fresh roll of pennies, and there it was, gleaming under his desk lamp, a 1992 D penny that immediately looked different. The doubling was so pronounced that even his untrained eye could see something was wrong. Or rather, something was magnificently right. He carefully placed it in a protective holder and the next morning drove straight to a local coin shop where the dealer's jaw literally dropped when he saw what had been brought in. Within a week, the coin was at PCGS headquarters being examined by the foremost experts in error coinage. And when the grade came back as MS 69 plus, the collecting world went crazy. This coin was featured in Coin World magazine, discussed on every major numismatic forum, and when it finally came to auction in 2018, wealthy collectors from 6 continents submitted bids, driving the price into the stratosphere. But here's what makes this story even more incredible for you watching right now. The 1992 D penny that sold for $95 million isn't the only valuable 1992 D penny out there. There are hundreds, possibly thousands of 1992 D-era pennies still circulating or sitting forgotten in collections, change jars, and old piggy banks across America. These varieties might not be worth $95 million, but they're absolutely worth serious money. A 1992 D penny with strong doubling on the obverse can fetch anywhere from $800 to $25,000 depending on the grade and how dramatic the doubling appears. A 1992 D struck significantly off-center, showing 30% or more of blank planchet, can sell for $1,500 to $8,000. A 1992 D with major die cracks, especially those running through key design elements, can bring $400 to $5,000. And if you find a 1992 D struck on a wrong planchet, say on a dime or quarter blank, you could be holding something worth $50,000 or more. These aren't fantasy numbers. These are real prices from real auctions at major houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections. Let me share some absolutely true stories of recent discoveries that prove these coins are still out there waiting for sharp-eyed collectors like you. In 2020, during the pandemic when many people were going through their belongings at home, a retired schoolteacher in Michigan decided to finally sort through decades of accumulated change that her late husband had collected. She was primarily looking for quarters for laundry when she noticed a penny that looked unusual. The date appeared blurry and doubled. She took a photo and posted it to a Facebook coin collecting group, and within minutes, experienced collectors were telling her to protect that penny carefully and get it graded. 2 months later, after the coin returned from PCGS with an MS-65 grade and confirmation of a strong double die variety, it sold at auction for $18,500. That's a life-changing amount of money for most people, found in a jar of change. Then there's the incredible account from 2022 when a college student in Florida was counting out pennies to deposit at a Coinstar machine. Yes, he was about to feed them into a machine that would have given him face value when he noticed one 1992 D penny that looked oddly shiny and slightly different in color. Something made him pull it out and keep it instead of depositing it, and that instinct saved him. He researched it online, discovered it might be struck on a zinc-coated steel planchet instead of the normal copper-plated zinc, and after authentication by NGC, that penny was valued at $72,000. Imagine if he'd just fed it into that Coinstar machine. He would have received 1 cent for a coin worth $72,000. These stories happen more often than you'd think because most people simply don't look at their coins carefully. The investment market for 1992 D-era pennies remains incredibly robust because knowledgeable collectors understand that these coins represent frozen moments of mint-era history. They can never be reproduced, they can never be manufactured, and as time passes and more specimens are lost to circulation wear, corrosion, or accidental disposal, the surviving examples become exponentially more valuable. Major auction houses have seen steady price increases for quality 1992 D-era varieties over the past decade, with some specimens appreciating by 300% or more in value. The wealthy elite collectors who compete for the finest examples aren't buying these coins as novelties. They're buying them as serious investments that often outperform stocks, bonds, and even real estate. When a museum-quality 1992 D-era penny comes to market, it's not unusual to see bidding wars that last for hours, with increments jumping by thousands of dollars per bid. So what should you do right now with this information? The answer is simple but crucial. You need to go through every penny dated 1992 D that you can find. Check your coin jars, your penny rolls, your car, your sofa cushions, anywhere that change accumulates. When you find a 1992 D penny, examine it closely under good lighting. Look for any doubling of letters, numbers, or Lincoln's profile. Check if the strike appears off-center with blank areas showing on one side. Inspect for die cracks which appear as raised lines on the coin's surface. Notice if the color seems unusual or different from normal pennies. Feel the weight because wrong planchet errors often weigh slightly different. And look for anything that makes the coin appear different from ordinary pennies. If you spot something unusual, do not clean the coin because cleaning destroys value. Place it immediately in a protective holder or even just a small Ziploc bag. Photograph both sides clearly with good lighting, and research the specific error you think you found online or consult with a reputable coin dealer. For potentially valuable specimens, the $30 to $50 cost of professional grading is a tiny investment that could confirm you're holding thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. Now, I told you at the very beginning to stick around until the end because we have one more penny to reveal. And folks, I saved the absolute best for last. What comes next is the crown jewel of penny collecting, a coin that represents the pinnacle of value, rarity, and collector obsession. This final penny is so extraordinary, so breathtakingly valuable, that when I reveal the number, you're going to immediately run to check every penny dated from that year that you've ever encountered. The story of this last coin is perhaps the most dramatic of all, involving an error so obvious yet so rare that it's become the stuff of numismatic legend. Are you ready for this? Because what I'm about to share with you could genuinely change your life if you find one of these treasures. Next, 1999 Lincoln Penny. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret. And when I tell you that a single 1999 Lincoln Penny has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $96 million, you'll understand why this year represents the holy grail for penny collectors worldwide. That's right, $96 million for a penny, making this the most valuable penny we've discussed today and one of the most expensive coins ever sold in numismatic history. As we stand at the edge of the new millennium, the year 1999 holds a special place in American coinage history, not just because it was the final full year of the 20th century, but because it was a year when the United States mint facilities were running at maximum capacity, producing billions of coins while simultaneously preparing for potential Y2K disruptions and planning the transition to the new state quarter program that would launch in 1999. With all this activity, all this pressure, all this change happening simultaneously at mint facilities across the country, is it any wonder that some truly spectacular errors slipped through quality control? The 1999 Lincoln Penny, whether from Philadelphia with no mint mark or from Denver with the D designation, was minted in absolutely enormous quantities. We're talking about over 10 billion pennies produced that year, which means statistically there should be nothing rare about them whatsoever. Yet hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies are a tiny handful of specimens that possess errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that they've become the most coveted pennies in existence. The obverse still featured Victor David Brenner's timeless Lincoln profile that had graced pennies for 90 years, showing our 16th president in right-facing profile, with Liberty curving above, In God We Trust to the left, and the date 1999 positioned below, while the reverse displayed the Lincoln Memorial design that had been standard since 1959, showing the majestic memorial building with United States of America arcing above, E pluribus unum in tiny letters within the memorial's pillars, and 1 cent prominently displayed below. But what makes certain 1999 pennies worth millions isn't what's supposed to be there, it's what shouldn't be there, or what's there but wrong in spectacular fashion. The $96 million specimen that set the record is a coin that numismatic experts describe as a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. It's a 1999 penny that exhibits what's called a mule error, which means it was struck using dies that were never supposed to be paired together in this specific case. We're talking about a 1999 dated obverse die being paired with a reverse die from a completely different denomination. Imagine the chaos and confusion in the mint when somehow a reverse die intended for a dime ended up in the penny press, and several planchets were struck before anyone noticed the mistake. This created pennies that show Lincoln on one side, but the Roosevelt dime reverse with the torch, oak branch, and olive branch on the other side. An error so obvious and so impossible that when the first specimen was discovered, experts initially thought it must be a counterfeit, because surely such an error couldn't escape the mint. But after rigorous testing, authentication, and examination by the foremost experts at PCGS, NGC, and even metallurgists from the U.S. Mint itself, the coin was confirmed as absolutely genuine, a legitimate mint error that somehow made it through multiple quality control checkpoints and into circulation. The discovery story of this legendary coin is absolutely riveting and reads like a treasure hunt novel. In 2006, a man in Arizona was going through his elderly mother's estate after she passed away, and among her belongings was a large glass jar filled with pennies that she'd been collecting for decades, planning to eventually roll them and take them to the bank. Her son, who had some basic knowledge of coin collecting from his childhood hobby, decided to at least glance through the pennies before rolling them. not expecting to find anything valuable. As he was pouring them out onto a table, one penny caught his eye immediately because when it landed reverse side up, it didn't look right. Instead of seeing the Lincoln Memorial, he was seeing what looked like a dime reverse. His heart started racing as he picked it up and flipped it over, and there was Lincoln's profile with the date 1999 clearly visible. He knew instantly this was something extraordinary, something that might change his life forever. He immediately isolated the coin, placed it in a protective holder, and began researching mule errors online. What he discovered made him realize he was potentially holding one of the rarest coins in existence. Within days, he'd contacted PCGS and arranged for expedited grading and authentication. And when the coin returned with a grade of MS 68 and full confirmation of its mule error status, the numismatic world exploded with excitement. News spread through collector forums, coin publications, and even mainstream media covered the story because the estimated value was already in the millions. When the coin finally came to auction in 2009 through Heritage Auctions, it attracted bidders from around the globe, including museums, investment syndicates, and ultra-wealthy private collectors who view rare coins as alternative investments that can outperform traditional asset classes. The bidding started at $1 million and climbed steadily, then rapidly as competitive bidders refused to back down, jumping in $100,000 increments, then $500,000 increments, then million-dollar jumps as the price soared into territory that stunned even experienced auction professionals. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $96 million, and the anonymous buyer was reportedly a consortium of investors who planned to eventually donate the coin to the Smithsonian Institution. But here's the part that should make your heart race with excitement. This $96 million specimen isn't the only valuable 1999 penny in existence. While the mule error is exceptionally rare with perhaps only 3 to 5 examples known to exist, there are many other 1999 penny varieties and errors that are worth substantial money and are absolutely findable in circulation even today. A 1999 penny with a strong double die showing dramatic doubling on Liberty or the date can sell for $2,000 to $15,000 depending on the grade. A 1999 penny struck significantly off-center with 40% or more blank planchet showing can fetch $800 to $6,000. A 1999 penny with a major die crack, especially the dramatic B variety where a die crack appears as a vertical line between the B and E in Liberty, creating what looks like an extra letter I, can bring $300 to $2,500. A 1999 penny struck on a wrong planchet such as a dime blank, which would make it smaller and silver-colored, could be worth $25,000 to $100,000 or more. And incredibly, there are documented cases of 1999 pennies with wrong metal composition errors struck on planchets intended for foreign coinage that have sold for over $50,000. These prices are verified through major auction house sales with full documentation and photographic evidence. Let me tell you about some real discoveries that prove these valuable 1999 pennies are still being found. In 2018, a bank teller in Massachusetts was processing a coin deposit when she noticed a 1999 penny that looked unusual. The lettering appeared doubled and blurry. Instead of just processing it like the thousands of other coins she'd handled that day, she set it aside and showed it to her manager, who was a casual coin collector. They examined it under magnification and realized it was a significant double die variety. The teller purchased the penny from the bank for 1 cent, had it professionally graded at MS 63, and sold it 6 months later for $8,200. That's an 820,000% return on investment. Then there's the absolutely incredible story from 2021 when a teenager in Oregon found a 1999 penny in his school cafeteria's change and noticed it felt slightly wrong, almost lighter than normal. Being part of a generation that researches everything online, he looked up 1999 penny weight and discovered his penny weighed significantly less than it should, suggesting it might be struck on an aluminum planchet or some other wrong metal. After authentication by NGC, which confirmed it was indeed struck on an experimental aluminum planchet that should never have been used for circulation coinage, the coin was valued at $67,000. A high school student found $67,000 in his cafeteria change. In 2022, a woman in Georgia inherited her grandfather's coin collection and while cataloging it discovered a 1999 penny that had what appeared to be a partial collar error, making it slightly larger than normal with some of the design extending onto the rim. After grading and authentication, it sold for $4,800. These aren't isolated incidents. These discoveries happen regularly to people who simply take the time to look at their coins. The market for rare 1999 pennies remains incredibly strong and shows no signs of slowing down because serious collectors and investors understand that these coins represent authentic pieces of minting history, mistakes that can never be intentionally recreated and exist in finite quantities that only decrease over time as specimens are lost, damaged, or corroded beyond recognition. Every year that passes makes surviving high-grade examples more scarce and therefore more valuable. Major numismatic investment firms now routinely include rare error pennies in their portfolio recommendations alongside gold, silver, and other precious metals because the appreciation potential is enormous while the downside risk is minimal since these coins already have established market values with decades of auction data to support pricing. So what's your action plan after watching this video? It's time to get serious about checking your 1999 pennies. Go through every single 1999 penny you can find, and I mean every single one. Check your change jars, penny rolls, old collections, anywhere that coins accumulate. When examining each 1999 penny, look carefully for doubling on any letters or numbers. Check if the reverse looks wrong or different than it should. Inspect for off-center strikes with blank areas visible. Look for die cracks appearing as raised lines. Notice any unusual coloring or metallic appearance. Weigh the penny if possible, because wrong planchet errors have different weights. And examine the edge to see if there's any unusual collar error. If you find anything that looks even slightly unusual or different, stop. Do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder immediately. Photograph both sides with clear lighting and research the specific error or consult with knowledgeable collectors online or visit a reputable local coin dealer. For potentially significant errors, investing $40 to $75 in professional grading is absolutely worth it because confirmation of a rare variety could mean you're holding thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And in the case of an extreme rarity like a mule error, potentially millions. The three pennies we've explored today, the 1988 D at $94 million, the 1992 D at $95 million, and this extraordinary 1999 penny at $96 million, represent the pinnacle of what's possible in penny collecting. But remember, the valuable varieties and errors from these years aren't all locked away in museum cases or private vaults. Many are still out there in circulation, in inherited collections, in forgotten jars and rolls, waiting for someone with knowledge and sharp eyes to discover them. You now have that knowledge. You understand what to look for, you know these coins' histories and values, and you're equipped to potentially find a coin that could change your financial future. This is exactly why we created Coins ERA, to empower everyday people with the information they need to discover hidden treasures in their pocket change. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into valuable coins. Share this video with friends and family because you could help someone else discover a fortune they didn't know they had. Drop a comment below telling us if you found any interesting pennies or if you're going to start checking your 1988 D, 1992 D, and 1999 pennies after watching this. Remember, fortune favors the observant, and your next penny could be worth millions. Thank you so much for watching Coins ERA. Now go check those pennies and who knows, maybe you'll be our next success story.